My name's Woody. Proper name is James Woodring, but everybody has known me as Woody pretty much forever. Uh, and I've been in this business for quite some time, and I guess this interview is about me, or is about Jordan, or about somebody.
So, why don't you tell us about when you were working in Chicago?
I was general manager for an operation called Laurel BMW Motorcycles. It was actually a descendant of the original dealership from DuPage County, Illinois, which was my dealership from the early 70s. And it evolved through a couple different owners and then finally wound up in the hands of Mercedes-Benz, Audi, BMW car dealership, and we were the redheaded stepchildren of the organization. But anyway, I was general manager of Laurel BMW. And that's kind of how I got there. It was kind of an interesting deal in that some of the parts that were in the parts department were some of the parts I had from the early 70s, still in their little original BMW bags in the late 90s. So it's kind of an interesting evolution going on.
So, who did you get to meet in the 90s and sell them a motorcycle?
Well, being in the Chicago area, there's all kinds of personalities, as you may expect. The first one actually was the fellow who played the part of B.J. Honeycutt in MASH. His name is Mike Farrell, and he was in town doing a visit to Joliet State Prison because he was an activist against the death penalty, and I wound up selling him an F-650 at the time. After that, of course, we had a fellow by the name of Andrew Galata, who was a professional boxer that came in and bought a bike from us. Several other personalities, but the one that sticks out, of course, was the basketball player we've all heard about called Michael Jordan. If we can recall, back in the 90s, the Bulls had won 5 consecutive championships, and he sank the buzzer shot for the 6th consecutive championship for the NBA. And apparently on his way back from the airport, landing at O'Hare Field, he saw a billboard from BMW that was promoting the R1200C, which was the BMW Cruiser, their answer to Harley Davidson and that genre of motorcycles during that period. And he saw the billboard and couldn't live another day without it. So I got the phone call, recognized the voice, and he didn't want to do the deal in the dealership. He would have preferred to do it at home. So I said, not a problem. Arranged to get a demonstrator up to him, and this was in Highland Park. I call it Fort Jordan. Beautiful, beautiful place. And number 23 done in metal sculpture on the entrance gate of the estate. But anyway, I digress. We got the bike to him, and he looked it over, the demo, and thought that, oh yeah, I got to have one. So I had my service department assemble the parts. This was very early in the product lifespan, so we had to scrimp and scrounge for all of the available accessories. He wanted windshield and an accessory seat, and we managed to cobble that all together and got it all to him. It took about 4 or 5 days, but I actually rode the bike, his new bike, to Fort Jordan, and we spent about 2 hours there, fitting him up with a helmet. He's a big guy, but you'd think that he would have, a fairly large helmet size, but no, he was just a size medium, just like most normal people. So that's how all of that came about, and the most interesting thing was the reaction from the press, the media. They were all going nuts because obviously buying a motorcycle could suggest something like maybe a retirement. And Mr. Jordan said that he really didn't want me to make a big deal out of this, but the newspapers were calling me the next morning, wanting to either confirm or deny, which I couldn't. But the interesting thing is that even though he wanted privacy, he decided to ride the motorcycle to City Hall to do some business for his restaurant, and the reporters were all over him like paparazzi. As a result, we finally said, yeah, okay, here's what happened, and I explained the details to the local media. it wound up not being an advertisement, but just an article in one of the suburban papers that yes, indeed, our dealership had sold him the bike. So that was always an interesting proposition. And the funny thing was that he wound up buying a second motorcycle from me several weeks, actually months later, after he had a slight mishap with the bike I sold him initially. And so I had the guys who were going to go pick up his slightly scratched R1200C. We had to have something for him to ride in the interim time, so we sent up a brand new K1200LT, which he couldn't live another day without after he laid eyes on that. So actually we sold 2 bikes to Michael Jordan, and that's how all that went down. It was fun. We always had a good time. Later on, we arranged to customize Michael Jordan's bike. Had chrome put on this and did a lot of different stuff to doll it up and make it personal. So that's kind of the Michael Jordan story, and it worked out very well. With all the publicity we got out of that, just by word of mouth, we had people literally coming through the door saying, "I want to be like Mike." So it was almost predictable, but it was a lot of fun, and it got him interested in motorcycles, and obviously it stuck because from what I understand today he is still part owner of a superbike racing team. So that was kind of his initial push into the motorcycle genre.
So what was it? So did you enjoy working with Michael?
Oh yeah, he was salt of the earth. When he first came out of the house, he was grinning like a little kid when he first saw the bike. He couldn't hide that, and we were making small talk. Generally, my interest wasn't so much in let's say flaunting his celebrity. It was more or less just from guy to guy. We discussed things like he had an ingrown toenail, which was part of the local press at the time, and we talked about that. We talked about our little kids because we both had little kids about the same age. And when it came time, I had photographs of my children, and I said, it's not for me, but I'd like to have you, if you wouldn't mind, sign the autographs for the boys, and I think you owe it to me, Michael. And he kind of looked at me funny, and I said, it's not because of the relationship we have of me selling you the bike or anything like that. I said, it has everything to do with me having to watch about 25 or 30 episodes of Space Jam. So I said, you're going to pay the price. He goes, okay. And so he wrote down the autographs on all 3 of my children's photographs. It was interesting because my oldest boy, Evan, he had I guess it was a 10 by 12, or anyway, the big, whatever the prints are that they have at JCPenney, holding a Jordan basketball. And so that's his most prized possession today, is his autographed picture of Michael Jordan that had written on there of my son holding a autograph, or the Jordan basketball. I don't know where we bought it, at Sears or something, but it was kind of an interesting thing. The other 2 boys have their own stuff, and they have them framed in their rooms, and everything was, that was lots of fun. Probably the most fun, though, was when we were all concluding it. I had to collect a check because obviously we're selling a motorcycle, and I said, okay, we've got everything signed, paperwork, but I got to collect a check, and I can't remember for how much it was, but he gets this look on his face like, oh. He says, oh my gosh, he says, I think his wife at the time was Juanita Jordan, and he says, Juanita's got the checkbook. So I had to tell him, I says, can I see your ID? No. And we laughed like heck about that. He gave me a tour of his place. He had 2 monster garages of vehicles. The one attached to his primary home, where all the maids were running around all barefooted with feather dusters. Very interesting deal. But he probably had, I'm going to guess, about a dozen vehicles in the primary garage. And we took some photographs of him sitting on the bike with me and things like that. But it was parked right behind a Ferrari sedan, of all things. And it was kind of an interesting deal. He says all the cars and stuff I don't like are down at the other garage. I go to the other garage, and sure enough, about 70 yards or so from Jordan's primary garage was almost like a storage shed in comparison, but it was packed full of vehicles that people had loaned him, given him, whatever it happened to be. So that was my tour of Fort Jordan. It was fun, and it was a great experience, and it did a lot for the dealership as well, just in the business that it brought in, and brought a little bit of excitement to the whole nature of that new product. And we wound up being one of the better dealers, if not the top dealer in the United States for the R1200C that year, and that was a big part of it.
What was the most interesting thing about Michael Jordan?
I think the most interesting thing about it was just he was kind of like, you think with all the publicity and everything else that he would be, kind of a standoffish kind of individual. Far from it. He was kind of like your next door neighbor leaning over the fence with a six-pack of beer, just salt of the earth. He gave me a cigar at the conclusion of it. He was off to play a golf game with Charles Barkley down in Naperville. And he was almost left the premises, stopped, backed up, and handed me a cigar that was probably about a mile long and as big around as a beer can. And he says, "I'll probably enjoy this." And I think I still have that around someplace, where I actually saved the cigar. So somewhere in my boxes of stuff that have moved around the country is that cigar from Michael Jordan. I think it probably was a cigar that would not have been permitted legally into the country at the time. I think it may have come from Cuba, but I can't confirm or deny that either.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not really, other than, I think that kind of publicity goes as far as money you could go out and spend money on, or advertising you could spend money on. Just the word of mouth advertising we got out of that was priceless, and just having fun, doing business with a celebrity. And again, it's surprising to see that somebody of that notoriety could be so down to earth. He was just a real good guy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.